Your Excellencies, distinguished speakers, dear participants, on behalf of the UNESCO World Water Assessment Program and of the WAP Water and Gender Working Group, I would like to welcome you to the launch of this important and timely call for action initiative. For the audience, I encourage to use the chat box to write your questions, comments, and expression of interest. Now, let me introduce Mr. Abu Amani, Director of the Division of Water Sciences of UNESCO, who will open the session on behalf of UNESCO Assistant Director General for Natural Sciences, Madame Shamila Nair Boudouel. Abu, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Michaela. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. It's my pleasure to convey this message on behalf of first, the Director General, Madame Audrey Azoulay, and also our Assistant Director General for Natural Science Sector, Shamila Nair Boudouel. When we think of gender inequality, we naturally think of education, employment, healthcare, and housing. We rarely think of water. This is a mistake. In this field also, inequalities are both numerous and profound. This is first and foremost due to the number of women involved in collecting water. In 1.6 billion households worldwide, someone must work to collect water. This task often falls disproportionately on women. Globally, women devote around 200 million hours to this task each day. This means they have 200 million hours fewer to spend on educating and informing themselves or securing paid employment. In other words, working towards their independence. Secondly, gender inequalities also arise due to the water scarcity, which weighs heavily on women's health. Alarmingly, insufficient water and sanitation cause the death of 30,000 women each year, especially young mothers. Lastly, a third type of inequality is emerging. Today, only 17% of people working in the water sector are women, even though in many countries, they are the custodian of ancestral knowledge on the water management of that resources. We must act against this inequality as well. We must act so that water does not prevent women from exercising their right to education, employment, and health. But we must also act so that women can participate equally in water management. Considering water when thinking about gender equality, this is precisely the goal of the call for action launched by the World Water Assessment Program. In particular, we must collect more data in order to better measure water-related gender issues. The World Water Assessment Program's recent study, published in June, investigates the progress, challenges, and opportunities with respect to these questions. This is a first milestone. The call will help us to implement the public policy recommendations presented in the report, and most importantly, the principle of equal access to water. However, it is also necessary to strengthen international coordination and render it more effective. Our call, issued by a coalition of international and regional organizations, states, universities, NGOs, and civil society, shows that this cooperation is essential and achievable. With this call, we ultimately want to put an end to a paradox. Although water is indeed a global common, it is a burden that mainly falls on just one half of humanity. Let's ensure this call is heard around the world so that we can achieve our common objective, promoting equal access to water. I thank you.
Thank you, Abu. Thank you for your inspirational talk. And now we start with the presentation. If I can have the first slide, please. Excellencies, dear participants, we are pleased today to launch the call for action to accelerate gender equality in the water sector. Next, please. This fact-based call led by the World Water Assessment Program has been prepared with the Water and Gender Working Group. I would like to recognize the role of the working group consisting of experts from member states institutions, UN agencies, international, regional, non-governmental organizations, academia, UNESCO chairs, and individual specialists. Next, please. The call for action would not have been possible without the collaboration of this working group, with a research work that took almost 2 years. Next, please. Why is so crucial that the water sector be gender sensitive? It has been observed that social cultural constructions can cause women to have a lower access to water, productive resources, credit, and related knowledge. This directly translates into a number of negative consequences: less time for income-generating activities, education and strengthening capacity, a phenomenon called time poverty. Weaker social representation enhance gender disparities in decision-making, leading to a lack of gender consideration in water policies. Next, please. The year 2020 marked the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, as well as the 5 years milestones towards the end date of the 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development. However, evidence-based information on the progress to gender equality in the water domain seem to be fragmented or not available. In response, WAP did an extensive analysis of the progress made in gender equality in the water domain on a wide range of development aspects with the support of the 50 experts of the water and gender water groups. Next, please. The analysis culminated in a land publication showing that progress to achieve the goal established in international declarations and agenda is very slow, and we are far from meeting the agreed goals. Among various issues, we have seen that gender consideration included in policies do not always translate into advances in practice. There is a persistent low participation of women in leadership and in general as professionals in water resources. Adequate funding to implement capacity development activities, data collection, projects and programs related to water and gender is lacking. There is a widespread lack of disaggregated water data by sex, age, job, and other elements. Based on these findings, WAP and its working group has raised the flag, calling for bolder, urgent action. Next, please. The ultimate goal of the call for action is to accelerate the achievement of gender equality in the water domain through better data and concrete actions. Next, please. The call aims to highlight the urgent need for accelerating gender equality and women empowerment in the water domain, call upon decision makers and political leaders, urging them to take concrete actions and break with the current status quo. Encourage the development and implementation of gender-inclusive transformative reforms. To this end, we have recently created a multi-stakeholder coalition for the call for action, which includes member states, institutions, UN agencies, international and regional organizations, NGOs, ODAs, private sector, and civil societies. So far, the coalition has 25 members, including 8 champion countries that will convey their support today and in the twin session of August 25. The coalition is open and we encourage you to join it. I will explain how to do it later. Next, please. The call consists of 3 fundamental pillars. The first is recommendation for actions. A position paper recommends specific actions to be addressed by political leaders and decision makers, which include to act upon the principle of gender equal funding without relying on unpaid work by women and girls. Prioritize the collection of sex disaggregated data to assess the impact of action and eliminate data gap in water resources. Develop gender transformative strategies and policies informed by reliable sex disaggregated water data and supported by adequate funding. Narrow the gap between policy and practice, strengthening regulatory frameworks and conducting comprehensive gender assessment aligned to the human rights to water and sanitation. Foster women leadership beyond participation by incorporating a gender perspective and facilitating relevant capacity building. Counter negative gender norms, stereotypes, taboo through public interest messages, education, and legislation. Next, please. The second pillar consists of raising awareness and disseminating information. The slide shows the roadmap of the call until 2023. Why 2023? Because 2023 is an important milestone for the call, as it will coincide with the celebration of the International Water Decade midterm evaluation, in which the members of the coalition for the call will be able to showcase their advances, new actions, and share experience with other actors. On the way to 2023, the call will be presented at several international and regional events. The World Water Forum in Dakar in March 2022, Dushanbe Conference in June, the Asia Pacific Water Summit in September, and others. Next, please. Finally, the third pillar, the fundamental one. Countries join the coalition for the call and support the initiative through advocacy and implementing concrete actions. Already by the end of this year, 2 major events will be organized by members of the coalition. The Conference on Water and Gender Equality, organized by the Republic of Slovenia during its presidency of the European Council in October, together with UNESCO WAP, and the regional launch presentation at the Asia International Water Week in November, organized by the International Center for Water Security and Sustainable Management of the Republic of Korea. Next, please. If you are willing To join the coalition to support the call for action, you can send the expression of interest of your entity to UNESCO WAP to the dedicated email address, water and gender call for action @unesco.org. You will find more detailed information of the call on the WAP website. Thank you in advance for your interest. In this second leg of the session, high-level representatives of several member states will convey their messages of support to the call for action, with a focus on the opportunity that exists in policy and implementation at international and at national level. Mrs. Christine Kim, Program Specialist of UNESCO IWSSM, will accompany me in the presentation of these distinguished speakers of the panel. Let's start with the first distinguished speaker. I'm now very honored to give the floor to our first distinguished speaker, His Excellency Borut Pahor, President of Slovenia, representing also the 2021 presidency of the Council of the European Union.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to participate at today's high-level event in the framework of the Stockholm World Water Week. In recent years, there has been a significant change in the people's way of thinking of how they should protect their environment, in particular water. Slovenia entered the right to clean drinking water into its constitution, and I, in a close collaboration with my standing committee on climate policy, pay close attention to water management. Access to drinking water and sanitation facilities is an important goal of sustainable development and a prerequisite for implementing the Paris Agreement. COP26 will be the crucial also in this regard. Through water, we feel the effects of climate change. However, water availability is less and less predictable. Access to drinking water and management of water sources has become a security threat for many environments. By 2040, the global demand for water will exceed the supply by 40%. If water concerns will not be addressed properly, we will face long-term negative implications for development and security. To be more efficient in our efforts, we need to join all our forces and pay more attention to huge gender-based inequalities. In many societies, women and girls are those who collect water. This exposes them to a violence and health hazards and prevents girls to attend school. Women are underrepresented in decision-making in water resource management. Their stronger participation in water diplomacy can have positive effects, as it can contribute to a more comprehensive and sustainable security. The COVID-19 pandemic has further exposed the unequal burden in men and women. It is clear that the reaching SDG 6 without accelerating gender equality will not be possible. To improve the situation, we need to enhance research and knowledge in this domain. I pay tribute to UNESCO's effort in this regard. Ladies and gentlemen, I am glad to say that Slovenia will, throughout its presidency of the Council of the EU, devote a special effort to water management and will strive to scale up the EU investments in water and gender equality. A joint approach is vital for building resilience and addresses the overlapping crises we are facing and prevent those in the future. Thank you for your attention.
We express our sincere gratitude to His Excellency Borut Pahor, President of Slovenia, for his support and encouragement to the call for action. I have the pleasure now to introduce our next distinguished speaker, Her Excellency Chung Han, Minister of Environment of the Republic of Korea.
It seems that we have a problem with the
기후위기 속에서 아직도 많은 여성들이 더 먼 길을 걸어서 무거운 물을 길어와야 하는 상황에 직면해 있습니다. 안심하고 먹을 수 있는 물을 모든 사람에게 공급하는 것. 이 과정에서 젠더 평등을 달성하고 또한 물 분야에서 여성의 정책 참여를 확대하는 것. 이는 우리 국제사회 공동의 책무이자 또한 우리가 꼭 달성해야 하는 지속가능 발전 목표이기도 합니다. 존경하는 귀빈 여러분, 대한민국은 과거 전쟁의 아픔을 딛고 국제사회의 수원국에서 공여국으로 전환되는 과정 중에 많은 여성들이 기여했습니다. 특히 모두가 깨끗한 물을 누리는 과정 속에서 대한민국 여성들의 역할은 빼놓을 수 없습니다. 나와 나의 가정, 그리고 나의 자녀를 위한 물이라는 확고한 신념을 가지고 정부와 민간, 학계, 시민사회 등 그야말로 물관리 각 분야에서 목소리를 내왔고 그 결과 우리나라 상수도 보급률은 전국적으로는 99%, 농어촌 지역의 경우에도 95%에 이르는 등 남녀노소 모두를 위한 물 공급을 실현하고 있습니다. 저 역시 여성이면서 동시에 대한민국의 물관리를 총괄하는 책임자로서 모두가 소중한 물의 가치를 누리는 데 초점을 두고 물 관련한 정책 입안 과정에서도 여성이 정부와 학계 그리고 시민단체 등 다양한 분야에서 참여할 수 있도록 노력하고 있습니다. 존경하는 귀빈 여러분, 대한민국은 이러한 경험을 토대로 유네스코와 함께 전 세계로 확산될 물 분야의 젠더 평등 캠페인에 적극 동참할 것입니다. 지속가능 발전 목표의 기본 철학인 누구도 소외되지 않는 발전을 위해서 그리고 물과 젠더 평등에 대한 다양한 연구와 토론회장을 만들어 가겠습니다. 유례없는 팬데믹 그리고 기후위기 시대에 모두가 안심하고 먹을 수 있는 물에 대한 상호 연대 그리고 협력이 증진되기를 진심으로 희망합니다. 고맙습니다.
Our deep thanks to Her Excellency Chung Han, Minister of Environment of the Republic of Korea, for this great support to the call for action. And now I'm very pleased to welcome His Excellency Suleiman Hussein Adamu, Minister of Water Resources of Nigeria, who is connected with us remotely. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, distinguished participants. It's my honor to address you on this occasion. Deliver my own perspectives on accelerating gender and equality in the water sector in Nigeria. Achieving gender equity, equality, and empowerment of women and girls have long been the priorities of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. On the foundations of a range of treaties, conventions, and other commitments towards greater gender equality. Nigerian National Gender Policy recognizes that gender equality and empowerment of women and girls is a basic human right. The global recognition of the vital role of women in full and equal participation and leadership in all areas of sustainable development. It is the recognition of this critical factor that prompted the Federal Ministry of Water Resources of the Federal Government of Nigeria to develop the policy for gender mainstreaming in the water sector. To address existing barriers that hinder the equal participation of women in access to water, sanitation, and hygiene. The overarching objective is to maximize the potential of all existing policies, programs, and projects to drive inclusive growth and sustainable socio-economic development, paying special attention to the needs of women, men, youths, people with disabilities, and the elderly. This policy document sets the tone, offers guidance and advice, provides immense valuable entry points for deepening and accelerating adoption and implementation of measures to advance gender equality for empowerment of women in the delivery of water sector services. It envisages that focused operationalization of this gender policy significantly improve gender inequalities in the water sector. The government of Nigeria is poised to focus more on supporting gender disaggregated population data for informing and motivating evidence-based advocacy, policy, and service planning. Under my leadership, there has been 3 permanent secretaries out of the 4 that I have worked with since 2015 that have been women, and that's permanent secretaries in charge of Water Resources Ministry. We now have women as directors in the various departments and agencies of the ministry as well. I must admit that we still need to do more to deepen this process of ensuring that women play a very active managerial management of the water sector, especially the formation of water sanitation and hygiene committees, water consumer associations, water user associations. I wish to reaffirm our commitment to strengthen and broaden our engagement, to promote and address the impact of water-related projects on women, understanding the links between irrigated land and water governance, giving women a chance and a voice in decision-making for water management, capacity development, and access to information, knowledge, and technology, thereby enabling and empowering women to benefit from water projects and water development issues. Thank you for your attention, distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
Our deep gratitude goes to His Excellency Suleiman Hussein Adamu, Minister of Water Resources of Nigeria, for his important message in support to the call. Now we welcome our next distinguished speaker, His Excellency Sirojidin Muridin, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Tajikistan.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, dear participants, first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the UNESCO World Water Assessment Program for inviting me to participate in today's event. Dear colleagues, billions of people around the world lack adequate access to one of the essential elements of life, clean water. With the urbanization, population growth, and the harmful effects of global warming, the problem is projected to get worse. It is clear that these challenges will affect global demand for fresh water. By 2050, it will increase by 20 to 30%, creating more than 50% deficit in available freshwater resources. Water scarcity differs from one place to another, in some cases causing wide-reaching damage, including to public health, economic development, and global trade. Unfortunately, too often we take water for granted, we waste it, pollute it, or ignore its destructive power. We call on implementing more sustainable and innovative practices, improving international cooperation and promoting education, including for women and girls, and public awareness about the intrinsic value of water and its essential role in all aspects of life is paramount. To this end, we believe that the call for action to accelerate the achievement of gender equality in the water domain, which is to be launched today, will inspire additional efforts in promoting effective and practical actions and facilitates the coordination at all levels in water sector. Dear colleagues, Tajikistan as an initiator of number of water-related UN General Assembly resolutions actively and consistently promotes the water issues at the global level. These resolutions, which are unanimously supported by all UN member states, put particular focus on gender equality and women's participation in the water sector. The government of Tajikistan also strives to increase the role of women as well as to ensure equal rights and opportunities for women in the socio-economic, political, cultural, and other spheres of life. We are also making efforts to actively involve women in the country's water sector. Tajikistan's National Water Strategy 2030 includes a target to achieve a 30% share of women in leadership positions in the water sector. Dear participants, Tajikistan is the host of biannual international water conferences within the Water Action Decade, known as Dushanbe Water Process, pays particular attention to the nexus of water and gender. We will convene the second high-level conference on the Water Action Decade in June 2022, during which special forum on water and women will be organized. The objective of the forum is to create an additional platform for broader discussion on water-related issues from the gender perspective. We are confident that the forum will address, among other things, the issue of accelerating progress towards the achievement of gender equality in the water sector, which is one of the main objectives of today's meeting. It will also enrich the outcomes of the Dushanbe Water Conference as a main preparatory meeting of the UN 2023 Water Conference that co-chaired by Tajikistan and Netherlands. Taking this opportunity, I would like to wish you a very successful deliberations aimed at contributing to acceleration of gender equality and women's empowerment in the water domain, and implementation of gender inclusive strategies. Thank you for your attention.
We are very grateful to His Excellency Cereni Muhyiddin, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Tajikistan, for supporting the call for action, and also for inviting to the Dushanbe International Conference in 2022 and to the International Water Decade celebration and process in 2023 in New York. And now we are very happy to welcome Her Excellency Marina Cereni, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Italy. Please, Vice Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michaela. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, it is a pleasure for me to participate in this event focused on two of Italy's main priorities within UNESCO, and more generally in the multilateral context, water management and gender equality. I would like to warmly thank the World Water Assessment Programme for this initiative and for having launched the call for action for accelerating gender equality in the water domain. This event represents a unique opportunity to emphasize the link between water and gender issues. Italy is traditionally engaged in the promotion of international cooperation on water resources management. Indeed, water plays a strategic role in the international scenario and is strictly linked to some major global challenges such as food security, rural development, and climate change. We believe that an integrated approach to the use of water resources is and will be crucial in order to achieve the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. Indeed, a fruitful dialogue among the actors involved is necessary in order to find innovative solutions and to mobilize public and private actions to improve water quality and sustainability. This aspect is included in 2030 agenda, and this is also why we decided to consider the planet as one of the three priorities of our current G20 presidency. Our long-term engagement with all issues and challenges concerning water resources is testified by Italy's strong support to the UNESCO WWAP program. Besides, our support to the WAP is yet another concrete example of Italy's active contribution to UNESCO, to which we attach great importance. Women empowerment and gender equality are priority issues for us. As our Prime Minister recently said, discrimination against women is not only immoral and unfair, but it is also part of a short-sighted approach. Reducing gender inequality should be a global priority. Italy's commitment to the promotion of gender equality will be once more highlighted on August 26, when the G20 conference on women's empowerment will be held in Santa Margherita Ligure. Actually, this will be the first time of an event on women's empowerment hosted at the level of G20 ministers. In this framework, implementing concrete actions to improve gender equality is indeed extremely important. We share the main points of the position paper at the basis of the call for action for accelerating gender equality in the water domain. An approach to water and sanitation grounded on human rights, the reference to the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals and to the UN Convention on Climate Change. Access to clean water and sanitation is indeed crucial for enabling women to fully exert their rights and to achieve their aspiration, including participation in public life and decision-making. Let us all join our efforts in this direction. Thank you for your attention. Italy is with you.
Your Excellency Marina Cereni, we deeply appreciate your presence with us today, and we deeply thank you for the important and powerful message of support. And now, with great pleasure, I announce the next distinguished speaker, Her Excellency Diana Kusumastuti, Director General for Human Settlements, Ministry of Public Works and Housing of Indonesia. Please, Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. In order to ensure universal and equitable access to drinking water, Indonesia government commits in the fulfilling Sustainable Development Goals, especially goal number 6, which is to ensure access of water and sanitation for all society by the year of 2030. We also commit and achieve goal number 5, that is to achieve gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia committed on implementing gender equality is based on Presidential Instruction number 9, year 2000, and gender mainstreaming in national development, which mandate all ministry or institution to implement gender mainstreaming within their program. This is a form of integrating gender into an integral dimension of planning, drafting, implementing, monitoring, and evaluating national development policy and programs. Gender-responsive approaches are also implemented in infrastructure development under Ministry of Public Works and Housing. Our ministry promotes gender equality as one of the issues and key point in our strategic plan and seeks to provide public work and housing infrastructure that is gender responsive. This means ensure equality between men and women, people with disabilities, children, low income, society, and other vulnerable groups in assessing, controlling, and participate in all levels of decision making, and also benefit from infrastructure development outcome as well as for drinking water infrastructure. distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Considering that drinking water is basic human needs, the implementation of gender mainstreaming is expanded into gender equality and social inclusion, JC framework. Yeah. So that attention is not only focused on women, but also on inclusion of marginalized group. With the implementation of JC framework in the drinking water sector, we expect that the improvement of quality and sustainability of water service can be more secure. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Public Work and Housing developed 3 programs concerning the aspect of JC in drinking water sector. The first program is PAMSIMAS. Yeah. It's collaboration program with World Bank. The objective is to improve access to community in rural and peri-urban area to water supply and sanitation facilities with a community-based approach. In 2021, this program has reached 45% of the total of in Indonesia, of total village in Indonesia, and increase access to safe water for 24 million people, which includes women beneficiaries. The second program, the output-based water grant program, is a breakthrough program increasing drinking water access for low-income community in the form of output-based grant from central government to local government. By 2020, this program managed to serve approximately 8.5 million people with a total of 1.7 million household water connection. The third program, the performance-based water grant program, is a partnership program between Indonesia and Australian government. It aims to encourage the improvement of service quality provided by local government-owned drinking water company through a scheme of incentive for achieving improvement on the performance of their company. Ladies and gentlemen, I will continue to support the gender equality mainstreaming through the program that are stated in the strategic plan of Ministry of Public Work and Housing. In particular, regarding drinking water service, implementing gender equality requires support, strong commitment, and collaboration among stakeholders to participate in accord to their role and authorities. Through gender equality, we ensure we could create livable, inclusive, and sustainable settlement both in urban and rural area. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, on behalf of Ministry of Public Work and Housing, I would like to express my gratitude for the opportunity given to our government to share our experience. Hopefully, this meeting can be benefit all of us for creating new idea, solution, and innovation in gender acceleration implementation on water supply, especially for the welfare of all people around the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Her Excellency Diana Kusumastuti, Director General for Human Settlement, Ministry of Public Works and Housing of Indonesia. And now it is a pleasure to announce the next distinguished speaker, Her Excellency Kitty Vanderheiden, Director General for International Cooperation and Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands.
Thank you for inviting me to the launch of the Call for Action for Accelerating Gender Equality in the Water Domain. And thank you for the important work you're doing. We're excited to work with you on this issue. And we're looking forward to incorporating the outcomes into the preparations for the UN Water Conference in 2023, which the Netherlands, as you know, will co-host together with Tajikistan. Your paper, Taking Stock, mentions 3 issues that I would like to highlight. First, collecting data on gender and inclusion. Second, decision-making power. And third and finally, financing. Now, first of all, data. The call for action is a plea for collecting more and better data on gender in relation to water issues. But it's not just data. It's about the whole analysis that we do before we design a project or a program. A gender and inclusiveness analysis is mandatory for all water programs funded by the Director General for International Cooperation, otherwise known as DEGIS. It should result in a program objectives and concrete activities which are monitored and then assessed in the final evaluation for learning purposes. But there is scope for improving the quality of the data and therefore the analysis, monitoring and evaluation. And your manual and toolkit are very useful for that. So thank you for developing these tools. The second issue is decision-making power. Despite our efforts to include women, they are still underrepresented in decision-making bodies in the areas of water management and WASH. We need to strive for equal representation, but we also need to strive for an equal opportunity to participate and for women's decision-making power. Now, let me illustrate this with an interesting story from India. A 2017 World Bank study on village democracy in India analyzed word for word who attended meetings, who spoke, and whose words were reacted to. And the researchers found that while women accounted for roughly half of the attendance at meetings, men dominated women by a factor of 2 to 1. Men spoke more often and therefore had twice as much floor time. And officials were more inclined to respond to what men said than to what women said. The interesting thing was that when a woman chaired the meeting, the underrepresentation of women's voices was reduced. Women were more likely to be heard, their interventions were more likely to be amplified and to get a decent response. Now, this shows that sometimes we have to take bold and creative action to break through barriers and to support feminist leaders. And let's not forget young people and indigenous groups who are also often overlooked. Now, for example, the Dutch-funded program Global Alliance for Green and Gender Action, otherwise known as GAGA, works with grassroots women's organizations on climate resilience. It turns the hierarchy upside down by letting grassroots groups decide on the distribution of funds, who gets what amount, and on the plans to be executed during the year. GAGA shows us that it is possible. It challenges us to review our practices. Women's movements are key drivers in addressing gender inequalities. So the OECD monitors the percentage of aid going directly to women's organizations. And ladies and gentlemen, the results are truly shocking. In 2017, only 0.05% of ODA was reaching women and their organizations directly. Not even 1%, not even 1/10%. And this measurement was repeated recently, and the percentage has not increased substantially. The Green Climate Fund has also investigated how much funding was awarded to women. And it turns out that all donors together, foundations, Women's Fund, institutional donors, all of them together allocated 0.1% of total grant funding to activities by women. 0.1%. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we should do much better. Why is this a problem? Well, first of all, receiving funds and therefore the recognition and support that comes with this for their specific experience, traditions, knowledge, ideas on ways to improve decisions on water is empowering for women. It also strengthens women's autonomy. But just as importantly, if women have decision-making power over their funds, their decisions are much more likely to reflect women's needs and ideas. And so there is room for improvement in the water domain. Could it be that our own procedures, our own requirements sometimes hamper women's participation? Should we set quotas, for example, on funding for grassroots women's organizations and organizations of indigenous women who are doing exceptionally important work in water management? For example, small grant funds often reach grassroots women's groups that we do not reach, and the transaction costs don't seem to be that much higher. Gaga is truly an inspiring example. Of all the funds allocated to Gaga, no less than 75% reach grassroots women's organizations. And we can also learn a lot from other feminist funds, like Leading from the South. More than a year ago, before COVID, long time back therefore, we held a roundtable meeting with other donors and private funds on gender, inclusion and the environment. And the focus was really on how to reach grassroots women's groups in water and climate. We would like to continue sharing experiences on how we increase funding flows to women's organizations in the area of water and how to support feminist leadership. I'm determined to raise the discussion of these issues, data, decision-making power and financing at the UN Water Conference. And I look forward to working with you and with all those women's organizations not yet in this room. We need to enable women to access their rights to water and sanitation, and to live in a healthy, clean and safe environment. And all of us together, we can get this done. Thank you.
Thank you to Her Excellency Kitty Vanderheiden, Director General for International Cooperation of the Netherlands, for your great support to the call for action since the start, a call that will culminate during the UN celebrations for the Water Decade Midterm Review in 2023, whose processes will be jointly led by the Netherlands and the Republic of Tajikistan. I have now the pleasure to introduce our last country representative for this session, Mrs. Silvia Chavez Cereceda, Director of International Cooperation of CONAGUA of Mexico. Mrs. Chavez, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christine, and warm greetings to all those present with whom I have the pleasure of sharing this important event today. Thank you, UNESCO World Water Assessment Program, for the invitation. During the last 2 decades, the relationship between water and gender has received considerable political attention at the international level. However, we must accept that progress has not yet been made in the concrete actions for recognition of women as fundamental and crucial part of our sector. We still have some pending issues in the agenda. For example, we have the pending issue of having gender-sensitive public water plans and policies that address the gap in access to water, especially for vulnerable groups such as women and girls. Their training to occupy high-level and decision-making positions. Also, and very important, the compilation of disaggregated data by sex and the integration of indicators with a gender perspective. We acknowledge that the World Water Assessment Program contributions on these issues have been fundamental to advancing gender equality and women empowerment. Given the significant commitments in the global water and environment scenarios, such as the Sustainable Development Goals and the Human Rights Agenda, it is even more essential to strengthen the actions that the water community has undertaken. Today, we are taking steps towards that goal through this important initiative. Mexico congratulates the World Water Assessment Program for such a laudable and necessary effort through the official launch of this call to action and for continuing to promote the gender agenda. Today, I am pleased to inform that my country, through the National Water Commission, CONAGUA, has recently joined this initiative. And on behalf of our Director General, Mr. Germán Martínez, I would like to extend a message of full support. As the highest national responsible authority for the administration of water resources in Mexico, CONAGUA is currently working under a water policy to close inequality gaps. The National Water Resource Program, our water agenda through 2024 has placed women and girls, especially those living in rural, indigenous, and marginalized communities, as the main target population. For this purpose, CONAGUA modified the operating rules of the federal programs for drinking water and for hydroagricultural infrastructure in order to promote the participation of women in the community decision-making process by giving incentives for federal funding in the community committee leading a local water project if the committee is led by women or by a greater number of women in decision-making positions. Our institutional organization chart has balanced the representation at management levels by increasing the number of women in key and decision-making positions. As an example, I would like to highlight that the coordination of our National Meteorological Service is currently headed by a woman, the first to hold this position. And overall, about 38% of CONAGUA's human resources are women. Actually, in this edition of the World Water Week, for the first time, the representation of CONAGUA in various sessions is in charge of women only. As part of the activities of the Mexican National Committee of the Intergovernmental Hydrological Program led by CONAGUA, a monthly seminar on gender and water is currently being held. And also, with the support of the National Association of Water and Sanitation Utilities in Mexico, ANEAS, we will soon launch the Spanish version of the UNESCO document, Methodology, Indicators, and Toolkit on Water and Gender. We recognize the importance for decision makers to continue their commitment to this initiative, primarily through national water policies, through general awareness of the issue, and through the enhancement of women's capacities in the water field. I take this opportunity to invite the countries that have not yet joined to become part of this multi-dimensional coalition to broaden the impact of this call to action. I will conclude by restating the need to make bolder efforts to ensure access without discrimination, to promote women's leadership in water management and governance, and to counteract these stereotypes that disadvantage women and girls. It has been said that gender justice is equal to environmental justice, and the reflection of women in water is a reflection of our societies. It is urgent to take actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chavez, for accompanying us today and for the powerful message you have shared with the audience. Now, Michela, I would like to pass the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Christine. Once more, we would like to share our deep gratitude to the high-level representative of the member states for their interventions and support to the Call for Action initiative. We also thank the audience for their attentions and call on everyone to turn words into actions. We are convinced that this call for action represents an invaluable opportunity to get on track within the ultimate deadline in 2030. And we encourage you to join, support, and be engaged. As I said before, if you wish to do it, please contact UNESCO WAP using the dedicated email for the call for action, Water and Gender Call for Action @unesco.org. I wish everyone a pleasant participation in the World Water Week and encourage you to accompany us in WAP's rich agenda during the week. Thank you very much.